Hello and welcome to the third and final part of our webinar series on automated testing. I hope you've enjoyed the first two webinars of this series. They were about why everyone loves automated testing and why everyone's bad at it. If you haven't seen them, please go and have a look on our website or our YouTube channel. Today I'm going to talk about test coverage. Specifically, is your company's coverage good enough? I'm going to look at code coverage, and I'm also going to talk about some other metrics you can use. How you can have a comprehensive enough unit test suite for your code base. So let's talk about code coverage. Why is code coverage so important when we talk about comprehensive test suites? Well, first of all, many organizations and developers deprioritize unit testing. From an organization point of view, they see it as a cost that they wonder whether it's necessary. From a developer's perspective, they don't always want to spend their time writing tests. So, if we think about code coverage as a metric, it will tell you whether or not your developers are writing unit tests. So, what we'll do later on is we'll talk about how we can measure whether your test suite is comprehensive using code coverage and other tools. But before we get there, let's have a look at why we want a good test suite. So Martin Fowler talks about a comprehensive test suite giving engineering teams the ability to modify and refactor code. So what does this mean? What we're saying here is that if you have a comprehensive test suite, you can be confident that you're not breaking the code as you move forward. So as you're adding that new feature, as you are refactoring the code, you can be confident that you haven't broken everything. And we've spoken before about why regression bugs, breaking something that works before, is really, really bad. So, how do you know if your company's code is well covered? Really, the important question here is, what does good coverage look like? Given that we've just spoken about bugs, particularly regression bugs being really bad, what we're looking for is a test suite that ensures you won't introduce any regression bugs. Some of the questions you can look at is, how often do you find bugs in production? How often does your QA team find bugs through manual testing? Are you picking up all your bugs during build time? Do you feel like there's an issue in code quality? Quite often your developers will know the answer to this question. There is one small problem with all of this, and it's really down to the lag time. Essentially, if you're waiting until your code's gone into production to find out if your test suite's good enough, it's too late. So what you need is a metric that's going to give you the confidence that you've got good coverage as soon as you possibly can. And this is where code coverage comes in. In itself, it's going to tell you which parts of your code base are covered and which are uncovered. It's obviously not going to give you a view as to the quality of the test cases, and it's not going to give you a view as to what use cases are covered. But at least you're going to have a good idea of which code that you've written has been exercised by your unit tests and which code is going to be exercised for the first time by QA or even worse, your customers. Once we've decided that we're going to use code coverage to measure how comprehensive our test suite is, we can start looking at the benefits we get from high code coverage. We can have improved quality, and that is coming back to the fact that by catching bugs earlier, they're less likely to end up in production. Increased productivity. If you're picking up bugs at build time, then the developer can fix them straight away as soon as they've introduced it, not days or weeks later. This in turn leads to faster delivery. And any code base that's easy to work with, where developers feel productive you're going to get increased engagement from your developers. So ensuring that you've got high coverage, comprehensive test suite is going to be good for your business and for your engineering team. So I'm sure you're all wondering what great secrets we have for increasing coverage. Well, I recently wrote a blog on this topic, and looking back over other parts of my career, there have been two options: either manually writing test cases in-house or manually writing test cases using an outsourced team. There are obvious downsides here. Both of them are very slow and very expensive. So we propose option 3. Don't let the humans do it. Make sure you're using new technology to improve your coverage. And you can see on our website the case study from Goldman Sachs, where they have used Diffblue cover to dramatically increase code coverage for legacy code bases and avoided the cost of using humans either internally or outsourced to deliver the same benefits. So over to your questions, and let's see what we've got coming in. Okay, so the first question here, I've spoken a lot about coverage. Isn't quality more important than quantity? That's a great question, and I think the answer is both are important. It's no good having a massive test suite with thousands of tests that don't really test anything the customer's going to do. Equally, having one absolutely perfect test case is no good either. There needs to be a balance between the amount of code that's being covered and the amount of functionality being tested and the quality of the test cases, both from the point of view of making sure that they are testing what your customer's going to do with the code, but also that they're easy to maintain and debug to add to the developers or make the developers' life easier. And we have another question here. What's a good code coverage target? And the suggestion here is 80%. Oh, this is one of my favourite questions when you start looking at code coverage. Is 80% good enough? Well, the answer is probably, maybe, possibly. It's hard to say. Is 80% better than 79%? Well, I really think it comes down to what is the coverage you're missing. If in that kind of 20% that you've not covered, you've got the most critical code for your application. If you're doing a e-commerce website and you've covered 80% of your code, but you haven't covered the checkout process, I pretty much say that it's not good enough. Code coverage targets are great because they're quantifiable. You can easily set them. Everyone understands what they mean, but they're not the most important thing for you to track. You need to be looking at the code that's uncovered. Now, if you're looking at setting a specific target, I'm a big fan of beat yesterday. In so many different areas of life, just saying, I will be better than I was yesterday is a huge start. And it's more about the trend and the change that's occurring than the absolute value. Okay, how do you balance test writing with new development? Well, we all know that if you don't do the test writing, if you allow your test suite to decay over time, you're basically building up technical debt. You're going to hit a point where new development suffers because of it. The problem is when your stakeholders coming to you and saying, I need this new feature, I need it as quickly as possible, just give it to me now, I don't care about everything else. And you think, okay, This once, I won't write tests, and I'll come back to it later and fill it in. But you never do. I think the only way to balance test writing with new development is when you quote for the development time, be it in story points in Agile, be it in time, you include within that the cost of writing tests. Because if we all know the downsides to not including the test writing at that point, and the fact that we don't come back to it, we should just say it's not negotiable. We should include it in those estimates. Finally, someone's come in talking about quality of tests. Why is using our tool better than developers writing tests? Okay, so Diffblue Cover, great tool for producing test cases based on existing code, not a great tool for understanding your business logic. So if you've got the time, if you've got man years of time to go and get your coverage from where it is today up to where you want it to be, then go ahead and use the developers to do it. That's probably going to get you the best quality tests. However, I'm yet to find a company that's got that amount of resource lying around spare. So what we're looking at doing here is producing good quality tests for a fraction of the cost of using internal or external resource. So not only can we kind of give you your test suite overnight or in a day or two rather than years worth of effort, we can also do it at a fraction of the cost. Now, I would also suggest that having used the test cases from Diffblue Cover, as you go through refactoring or editing the code, you take a look at the test cases. You'll probably find times where you can improve the quality of the tests with some simple maintenance, and this should just be factored in alongside your development cost. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for listening, and do send us any further comments and questions. And you can reach us through our website, diffblue.com, or on Twitter @diffbluehq, or myself @jgwilson42. Thank you.